Here's a simple, practical way to make Baked Alaska, which is this 19th century fancy pants restaurant dessert of cake and ice cream layers baked inside a dome of meringue. Yes, baked ice cream. What I'm going to show you is way easier and I think better. First, the cake. I've got a 9-inch square cake pan, 23 centimeters. You could do these quantities in a bigger pan, but not a smaller one. We're going to fill this past the brim, which is one reason I'm being sure to get plenty of excess when I cut out a parchment square, and then I'll snip diagonals into the corners. Those slits will help the paper lay snug inside the pan. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit, but if you see little bits that are going to curl into the cake, you can just snip those off. That's good enough. Grab a little mixing bowl and I'll put in half a cup of cake flour, maybe 60 grams. All-purpose flour would be okay. About 1 1/4 cups of powdered sugar, maybe 150 grams. You could use granulated sugar instead. It'd be about 3/4 of a cup if you did that. Half a cup of cocoa powder, 50 grams. I'm using Dutch cocoa, but natural would be fine. If you want a yellow cake instead, just replace the cocoa with more flour. That substitution doesn't always work, but it will with a dense cake like this. A teaspoon of baking powder, a small pinch of salt. Now time to separate 4 eggs. I'll just crack them into a bowl and fish out the yolks. The whites we'll need to make our meringue. And instead of making the cake a more traditional sponge cake, which would also require whites, I'm going to use these yolks to make a very rich devil's food cake. This way no egg goes to waste. Throw those whites in the fridge for later. More wet ingredients for the cake. I'm doing half a cup of Greek yogurt, like 140 grams. You could use sour cream instead. 1/3 of a cup of milk, 85 mils. Water or coffee would be fine instead. Then lastly, half a cup, 120 mils of any neutral cooking oil. Mix and mix well. Real fast for a few minutes just to get some bubbles started in there. My goal with these ingredients is to get a cake with a lot of protein, a lot of liquid fat, and not much water. Why? Because the cake is going to be frozen. I don't want it icy hard when I bite into it. Whoops, I forgot the vanilla. Big splash of that. Anyway, the high protein and high liquid fat content will give us a pudding-like consistency when it's cold. Butter and solid chocolate would lock up real hard in the freezer. Now that it's nice and smooth, I'll pour it into my cake pan. The weight of the batter will help keep that parchment in place. And we go to the oven at 350 Fahrenheit, 180 C. How long depends on many factors. I'd say start testing after 20 minutes. Just see if a skewer or a knife or something comes out of the middle clean. I want to give this another few minutes. I'd err on the side of it being a little overcooked since it's going to soak up some moisture later from the ice cream. Let that cool on the counter for a bit. Looks as soft and cushy as my mattress from Helix, the sponsor of this video. Helix is a premium mattress in a box company. We actually have 2, the king size we sleep on and the queen we put here in the guest room. My folks came and stayed with us, and I swear this is true. My mom came downstairs and said, "Where'd you get that mattress? It's so comfortable." You just go to Helix's site, tell them how you and any bedmates like to sleep, side, stomach, super firm, whatever, and Helix suggests a model for you. It literally comes in a box under vacuum compression. Break the seal and boom. You might think it would be really soft and squishy, and they have super soft ones if you like that, but this one is quite firm and solid. It's a real, very high-quality mattress. I find both our Helixes support my back better than our old mattress. I sink in just enough, and then it supports. You could pay as little as $1 a day with a special financing plan they're offering until September 19th. However you pay, click my link in the description and get up to $200 off your Helix plus 2 free pillows. You also get a 100-night sleep trial along with a 10-year warranty. HelixSleep.com/Ragusia. Thank you, Helix. Anyway, let that cake cool a bit and then transfer to the freezer. We need it real firm when we smear the ice cream on top. At least half an hour in there, I'd say. At some point, you want to take out your ice cream. I need 2 of these pints to cover that cake. Leave them out until they're just squishy. We need the ice cream soft but not melted. On it goes to the cold cake layer in blobs. I'm doing strawberry flavored, so I get this Neapolitan ice cream vibe, chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla layers, but obviously you can use any flavor you want. Since we laid it in blobs, it's already pretty even now, so I don't have to do very much to smear this solid. Since the cake is cold, it shouldn't be damaged by this, but I'm still being pretty gentle. Back in the freezer with that to harden up the ice cream layer, during which time I can make the meringue. Get a little pot and a big heat-tolerant mixing bowl. Egg whites go in there. In the pot goes a cup or 200 grams of granulated sugar, plus half a cup of water, 120 mils. Also a squeeze of corn syrup if you have it. Honey would work too, and get that boiling on high heat. In the egg whites goes half a teaspoon each of cream of tartar and cornstarch, and get it beating. You could use a little squeeze of lemon or a dash of vinegar instead of the cream of tartar, and you can use any starch, not just cornstarch. These additives will serve to stabilize the foam, keep it from collapsing or squeezing out water. No need to stir the pot over there. The squeeze of corn syrup makes it virtually impossible for that sugar to crystallize as it cooks. Get the egg whites to stiffish peaks like that. that, and when the syrup hits about 240 Fahrenheit, 115 C, it's time to very carefully drizzle it into the eggs as we whip. Please be careful, hot syrup is dangerous. Once you've got half of it in, you can dump in the second half much faster and keep whipping. I would never bother doing this without an electric mixer of some kind. The side of the bowl feels quite hot now. We're making Italian meringue, which is a pre-cooked meringue. It does not need to be baked. The hot syrup cooks it and gets you a marshmallowy vibe. In fact, this is often called marshmallow cream or marshmallow fluff. Marshmallow cream is Italian meringue. When it's glossy and doesn't seem to be getting any fluffier, it's done, but I'm continuing to whip it to cool it down. I don't want it so hot that it melts the ice cream, but I still need it a little warm. If it's not warm, it'll be impossible to spread. It's perfect when you can touch it and it feels just a little warm. Now you can whip in a little splash of vanilla without evaporating much of its flavor. I've got a little pinch of salt in there too, just for taste. Whip that in. Out comes the pan again, and very quickly, before the meringue starts to set up, scrape it all in there and smooth it out to an even layer. You can see why this is the smallest size of cake pan that'll work for these quantities, and the parchment has to be going all the way up. In the freezer again to harden at least a couple hours, but here we are the next day. Grab a cutting board, and now you can very easily lift the whole thing out with the paper. The sides of the paper should peel off real easy, and now we can slice. If you have a long, sharp carving knife, that'd be best. Whatever the knife, wipe it down after each cut if you want really clean edges. I think if you cut this into 6 pieces, those are pretty good portions. Last thing to do is brown the meringue like it would have browned in a very hot oven traditionally. This is just a cheap little fire stick. It does okay, but it takes a little while. If you have a kitchen torch or are a welder by trade, that's going to be a lot quicker. I love how the warm and toasty marshmallow on top contrasts with the cold ice cream. And the cake is firm but not icy. It's chewy and solid enough that you can lift the whole piece to your mouth without it breaking apart. Another alternative to the torch would be to douse the cake in a very high-proof spirit. Turn off the lights and carefully ignite with the fire stick or a long match. This is a trick that would have worked great in old-fashioned fancy restaurants because they were so dark. If the lights are on, you can't really see the flame. So there you go. Bring some retro kitsch to your next dinner party. It really isn't that hard.